This Racing Life with Albasti Equiworld, the leading supplier of horse feeds and supplements.
Hello everyone, you join me outside historic Bamborough Castle in golden hour, exquisite natural beauty in the area of Northumberland. It's a place though that might well be known for its racing in seasons to come, as our two stable visits will bear testament.
I think it's fair to say, looking at your record of 89 winners in the saddle, it could have gone even further had you not been luckless with injuries. I mean, just detail exactly some of the problems that you endured during your riding career.
Everything broke. Like it was like every time I fell, something broke, and it was tiring because, you know, I think I was 17 when I got the first one. I dislocated my shoulder, broke my right arm, and I separated the rotary cuff. And it was quite a big accident. Actually, it happened at home on the schooling ground at Nicky Richards. Wasn't in a race, and you know I was out for 3 months at that point. But I think I was leading the amateur jockeys title at that point, and I think I got beat by Marcus Foley by 2 or 3, and I was off for a good 3 months with that. So it was annoying. And then the following year, I'd turned conditional at this point, and you know, the same thing was happening. I was getting a lot of outside rides, you know, a lot for Venetia and for Philip Hobbs and Ian Williams, as well as my main support being Nicky Richards, and you know, Barry Murtagh was instrumental that year as well. I think I had a good 5 or 6 winners for him, and I had a lot of support from the north, but then again, I dislocated my shoulder again, and then needed surgery again, and I took another 3-month period off. And just lost out again by a few winners. So yeah, it was a little bit that way. And I never had a humongous career. I never had a very successful career. I mean, 89 winners is brilliant, but it's not what I envisioned. It's not what I wanted. I kind of felt that my whole life was geared towards being a jockey, and then it was kind of ripped away.
Ripped away at 22
Yeah.
as well. How did 22-year-old Paul Robson take that?
Not very well. To be honest, I never took it well for 14 years. But it just, what can you do? I mean, like I wasn't really good at talking or how do you speak to somebody about it. I felt a disappointment for myself. I felt a disappointment towards anybody who'd kind of supported us. And I took it tough, if I'm perfectly honest. I never had a massive chip on my shoulder for years because all I wanted to do was ride. And I couldn't get a licence, and I'd ridden, you know, enough winners to not get an amateur's licence again, even to riding point to points. And every year I rang the BHA licensing committee and asked them if I could reapply for a licence, and I just kept on getting told no. And yeah, it got to me a bit. So what could I do? I got out of racing altogether and joined the family business and joinery and carpentry, and I went and done advanced craft and whatnot, and followed in my dad's footsteps, and joined him and my uncle.
And being part of being a joiner, traditionally in and around your area, it led on to another path as well, which if you're not involved in the business, as many people watching, and I'm not, it doesn't necessarily seem like a natural progression, but there are links between joinery and undertaking.
Yeah, I just remember like being a kid, we had an old railway building was the joinery business. And on the big sign, the big white sign, it was A&J Robson Joiners and Undertakers. And the Undertakers was always there, even though we hadn't done any form of undertaking for 20 years. And when I qualified, obviously, to become a joiner and carpenter, the recession hit in 2009. And at that point, we had a premises, we had a lot of staff working for us, and we had a lot of overheads. And I'd imagine we probably would have went out of business or bankrupt. But as luck would have it, the other company, John Beattie and Sons in Hawick, that were a funeral directing company solely, they sold up to an Edinburgh-based firm. So we nipped up the inside rail and re-advertised my grandfather's part of the business, which was the undertaking, on the 1st of September 2009, and on the 2nd of September 2009 we got our first funeral.
Near the end of 2019 and into 2020, you made a comeback. You had 3 rides.
Yeah, so they asked me to go down to Newmarket to pass a fitness test. So I mean, this was a plan that I had in place for basically from the January. I think I contacted Nicky and Richard Hale and said this was my plan. Would they support me? They thought I was bonkers. And, you know, I got myself, I was 14 stone at that point. So, like, I got myself seriously fit. I locked myself away for 3 months and got the diet right, got everything else right. I went down to Newmarket. I failed my fitness test on the Saturday or the Friday that I went down, and a week later I went down and passed it again. So I mean, it was literally like a 1 or 2% that I'd failed it by. Doggedness got us through, and I did pass by a good 6 or 7%. Every single day I cycled 40 miles in the morning before I went and drove down to Greystoke, which is an hour and a half away, just to make sure that Nicky knew that the hard work was getting put in, that I was as fit as I could possibly be. And I actually turned up to Richard Hale's door to make sure he's seen how fit I was and how light I was, so that he could actually believe that, you know, if I was going to give it a go, I was serious about it. And I think Nicky always knew that I had an itch that needed scratching, and he gave us our first ride at Kelso on a horse called Headscarf Lil. She just got beat by a head. But yeah.
Any comment after that? Maybe it should have been 45 miles?
Yeah, maybe, yeah. I gave it a good ride, but I got beat, so that really grained in us. But Richard Hale rang me as I got to the car actually to drive home, and he said, "Look, you're back." He says, "That's it." He says, "Well done." So that's Fet Champetre in front. And behind there is Okavango Delta. He goes to Sedgefield next week. Connor Rabbit's in, another Greystoke lad. So we've got him. He's on Cracker Snap, and then Ed Austin is on Imaginary Dragon. So Ed's our main conditional, and him and Ryan worked together at Sandy Thompson's. So
those 3 rides, and then a move to racehorse training. Where was the spark there? Was this from quite some way before? Had it always been in the back of your mind this was something you'd like to try?
I would like to think that I've got a great feel for a horse, and me wanting to race ride again was me telling myself that I've never ridden a good horse for a long time, and I knew that on the pathway to that, I know I'll get into Greystoke. I went to Keith Dalglish's as well, and 2 completely different ways of training, but 2 very successful ways of training, you know, and then try and just soak in as much information as I possibly could to then apply for a license to train, to then know how to train.
There have been some unlikely influences in your training career. There are some that were very likely. Chats to Nicky Richards.
Yeah.
You would expect that, given your long association with him and working with him and riding for him.
Yeah.
Hen Knight, I didn't see coming. Just give us an idea of how exactly that association.
Well, I don't think Hen Knight, you've seen it coming either. So again, I'd had an injury on my back, ended up in the Royal Infirmary in Edinburgh, and while I was in there I was reading books and whatnot, and Hen's book was there. Her phone number was in it, or I googled it, I can't remember. It was 5:30 in the morning, and I rang her up, and bless her, she hadn't a clue who I was. And I was on morphine at the time. It was morphine induced, but she done her homework on me after that, and I think she rang Brendan Powell. Obviously, I'd ridden with Brendan, and he'd vouched for me, and Hen rang me back at 9:30 that day, and she sent me a lovely letter, and she rang us up every other day when I was in hospital, and we became friends, and she took a really keen interest in my life away from racing and the undertaking actually and whatnot, and she kind of had a bit of a fascination for it, which was nice, and we grew a friendship. And then when I got back on my feet, she invited me down to Wantage, so obviously I went, and that's just been the best relationship ever, because it was unlikely, and she was a hero of mine, the way she presented her horses on the racetrack. And I mean, my favourite race of all time is Edward Dunbalowen and the Queen Mother in 2000, and the ride AP gave it, and the way she produced, and obviously had a Gold Cup winner as well that year, and just so I was in awe of her, and I was a fan, so we became friends, which is really nice.
The move here, it wasn't too long ago.
I was actually skiing, believe it or not, and we were in a place called Orell, and Wilson Rennick happened to be in Maryville, and he'd been in touch to say, "Are you skiing?" He must have seen something on social media that I was there, and he asked me if I would meet him in Val Thorens. It was at the Folly Douche bar or something. It's like a day bar, and we met for a couple of bottles of beer, And during that couple of bottles of beer, we skied over a mountain each to get to this place. And he just dropped it a conversation that, you know, if there was a yard in Northumberland that was to come up, would ever consider a move. And I said, well, there is only one yard in Northumberland that anybody would consider moving to. And I said, I don't think it's up for rent. And he said, it might be. Put a plan in place that I would move down and take over from Rose when she retired.
You must have a great affinity to the Grand National, because you've surrounded yourself with Grand National winning jockeys, not just Tony Dobbin, but Ryan Mania as well. Yeah. He's now stable jockey here.
He is, yeah. It was important to me, actually, and Colin Thomas, one of our main owners. Ryan comes with a massive amount of experience, and we approached Ryan at the start of it, at the end of last season, and asked him, you know, if we go into this season. Ryan been coming in here and riding out, from the first year we moved here, and he understood the young horses that we were buying, the connections that we were trying to make, what my ambitions were for Hazelrigg, and we were looking for somebody to come in and share that vision. And he did. I mean, he had a good job, you know, with his father-in-law, you know, and whatnot. So for him, I think he was perhaps looking for a change. I mean, he's 36 years old. I think he was looking for a different challenge. And you know, when I first approached him, he actually said no. You know, he's got a good job, and why would he leave it? You know, they've been very successful. But the longer it went on, and I mean, I badgered him about it every week he was in. You know what I mean? Like, would you come in? Would you come in?
He'd mentioned it towards the end of last season. Dropped it into a few conversations that, you know, would you ever consider coming to work here? And to be honest, at the time, wasn't something that I was considering at all. But as life would have it, you know, things change fast in life, and my situation changed, and so end of last season I came to Paul and I said, look, the situation's changed, do you want me? And he couldn't put pen to paper quick enough. Not that we signed a contract or anything, but he was only too happy for me to come part of the team. So yeah, that was it.
Colin, I think, feels that, you know, he's the owner of a football, you know, a football stadium, and I think he thinks I'm his manager, and I think Ryan's his striker, you know what I mean? And I think Colin really wanted to invest in that, and he's new to racing, Colin, but he's a very business-minded person.
We say our piece, whether, you know, we might not like it or agree with it, but then we can discuss it, and that's the only way to sort these things out. And you know, we've never had a disagreement, you know, we genuinely haven't, because we were able to talk about it. And obviously it's early days, just a bit early in the day to be falling out with him. but it is, so long as you keep the lines of communication open, I think it works best doing that.
A good night's sleep can make all the difference to an athlete, whether you're equine or human. And here at Bedmax, they've been turning renewable timber into bed shavings for 25 years. Are the customers happy? Well, they're worldwide, and the results speak for themselves.
I think people underestimate, you know, how the bedding can have an effect on a horse. The dust, you know, we dry it to a certain moisture, so it's good for the horse's feet. Yes, it's a large flake shaving, but there's sort of smaller shavings throughout, and to us that provides support. Depending on your bedding management, a nice thick bed with banks provides the support. So if a horse is lying down and rolling, the Bedmax in theory provides the comfort. So there's no damage to any joints or hocks or anything like that.
There's been a real added emphasis on equine performers in recent times of respiration and all of the things that we want to avoid. If your lungs are clogged up, you're not going to be able to perform to a high ability. And Bedmax does plenty to minimise that.
Yes, it certainly does. So we have, you know, like I've just said to you, the process is very, very thorough, and the shavings go through sort of multiple extractions to remove the dust and the splinters. So the airborne dust, which we can't see with our own eyes, but you might see it like in a shard of light coming through the stable window, that's the dust to be worried about, and we remove all of that, so we can comfortably say that the horses, you know, are not exposed to that sort of dust.
So go on, I'll put you on the spot. Take me through the rough process of
goodness.
what exactly happens from a log to the bag.
Yes, okay. So the logs, to start with, they're all pine. So it's that has this antibacterial naturally in it, so which is why we use the pine, and that's the smell that people will smell when they open the bags. So the pine arrives in the yard and heads off into the system, and it goes through, it gets shaved, heads off, and it's got sort of the first extraction system on the splinters. It's so important that we remove as many of those splinters. Being a natural product, you know, it's quite difficult to, but we do everything that we can to remove it. It then goes off into the dryer. It's heated to a very, very high temperature to make sure any nasties that might be in the timber in its natural state are removed. Another extraction system, more dust removed, and then it heads off into the bagging system, and the moisture's taken and the weights, we sell at 18 kilos, so everything is of a certain moisture and a certain weight, and then it's palletized and sent out to the customer.
Is this a company that was made with horse racing and sports horses in mind, or is it something that has developed over time with more of an emphasis on that product?
Yeah, Tim developed it back in 2000 with the racing in mind. So he used to make haylage, something called Haymax, and that was made in a way that it sort of was for the sports horse and the race horses to limit the dust. So the Bedmax was developed in exactly the same way with the racing in mind, yeah.
You will see these bags all over the world in some of the most far-flung places you can imagine. Just give us an idea of how far and wide the Bedmax name goes.
Yeah, we're very, very lucky that we export it all over the world. Japan is a regular, and Hong Kong and the Middle East. We have had some go to Australia a few years ago, which it sort of blows my mind really. But yeah, no, we're very, very lucky that the racing industries across the world really value us as a good bedding provider.
What are some of the biggest challenges that the layman wouldn't necessarily consider, even whether they've been here or not, that face Bedmax?
For me, it's people's education of bedding. That for us as a bedding company is the biggest challenge. We're always trying to get people to understand how important it is and the processes that we go through to make sure the bedding is the quality that it is. It really isn't just a log goes in and the shavings come out. It's, there's a lot of thought goes in, and there's constant development going on to try and make it better and cater to what customers want. We're always looking for feedback and talking to trainers and wanting to know what they want from us.
In the last 25 years, plenty has changed. The emphasis on sustainability, a massive part now of exactly how businesses operate. How have Bedmax combated that?
We call ourselves a zero waste company. Nothing goes to waste during the production process. Our main product of that is the HotMax heat log. So all the dust and splinters extracted from the shavings goes into this heat log, which is proving a big seller in the heat log market. All the bark, all the log ends, all the sort of offcuts goes off into different markets where it can be used as well. So yeah, we really pride ourselves on sustainability. And the HotMax has got the paper. We've got the paper bag version, so it means nothing. The bag can be burnt at the end of the process, so nothing goes to waste. The plastic on our bags, the yellow and green, is made from recycled plastic. So we try and get it in wherever we can to sort of keep up our sustainability, because it is so important.
And until I saw the process of that log, I couldn't quite get it through my head. It's remarkable to just see it funneled through the factory and to see the end product. Yeah.
No, it is. Every time I go into the factory, I'm amazed about the whole process, and I love showing people around because it opens people's eyes to it isn't just a log in and the shavings out. We really do think about how we want to manufacture these shavings.
Were you pioneers of this particular product, or were you implementers necessarily?
Yeah, we would like to think so, that we sort of pioneered the large flake especially, and the it's not just a large flake in a bag, like I've sort of said. We've got the elements of the smaller flakes and the extraction and all the thought that's gone into it. So yeah, we would like to call ourselves the pioneers, or Tim is the pioneer.
What separates Bedmax from the others?
We think we're leading from the front, and we're durable. We've also got the NOPS accreditation, which is something through Beta Association. So NOPS is naturally occurring prohibited substances, bit of a mouthful. And it means that we can absolutely vouch for the fact that there'd be nothing in our bedding that would cause a positive drugs test. So the feed companies are all tested for NOPS. You would see the sort of the logo on the back of the bags, and it would be something that as a horse owner you'd look out for. But for bedding, it's not something that's ever really been done before. So we're the only company that has that, and it, you know, to a trainer, we hope that that is a very important thing, because there's you know, nobody wants a positive drugs test, and we would like to not be the person that causes it. So yeah, we have stringent sort of things in the factory that means the guys can't take things into the factory that would cause that. So there's all these quality checks and audits done to make sure that we hit the parameters of the NOPS spec. So it's a bit complicated, but the overall meaning of it is that there would be no positive drugs test if a horse was tested.
And in your spare time, you're involved in eventing. Are you a user of Bedmax?
I certainly am, yes. No, I take Bedmax with me everywhere. If we go to events and things, I won't use anything else. Yeah, no, I sort of, obviously working for a company like this, you do see why it is so important, and I truly believe, you know, the bedding, the exposure the horse gets to the bedding, it's so important that you get the right one.
Whatever business you're in, supply and demand rules the roost, and trainer Adam Nicol is a man in demand. Since our last trip to his base in Sea Houses, expansion has been the name of the game, with a blend of quality to go with the added quantity.
5 years ago we started with 2 horses, and it's went on to now, you know, we've got 20 stables there with another 6 going in. It's grown very quick. So obviously we've had a little bit of success with Wise Eagle, and we've started getting a bit more quality. We've got a nice horse in the yard, Manila Study. There's actually a number of horses that I think could progress nicely in the yard, and that I'm looking forward to running. You know, I couldn't mention them all, but basically all my owners are very easy to work with, but they're all wanting to support the yard, and like without forcing it too much, they're all keen to invest. So it's certainly going the right way, and it's happening quite quick. So it's a case of like trying to update the facilities with the influx of horses coming so quickly.
Which is a testament to you and the area as a whole, that you've been embraced locally for that as well. You have access to the beach, and I'm guessing there aren't too many problems of using it with the local clientele.
No, it's you know, we try and use it sensibly. Like in the height of the summer, we try and get early, but then in the winter it's pretty grand. Like there this morning was spot on, not a problem. And Bamborough Beach nearly being a mile long. It's you can do as much as you want on it. But the reason we've put in the 4 furlong gallop, obviously the beach is only 3 miles away, but we'll have to box there and stuff. So if we're busy and got a lot of runners and staff are away and stuff, we can work horses at home all on site. Or if the weather's really bad, it's just better, safer staying on site. And it's good being able to take horses different areas. They're not just doing the same gallop every day, and just gets a bit monotonous for them and boring. So try and mix it up a little bit. But you do get horses that like that routine, like doing the same thing. So we keep them doing that. But there's others tell you think he's sick, and then all of a sudden you'll take them to the beach or take them away schooling or something, and it just sort of sparks them up.
Some people, when it comes to renovation, they're informed by having a peek at other people's yards and seeing how they do it, seeing a bit of kit they don't have and thinking, well, when we have the relevant funds, we'll definitely be getting that. Your experience was more informed through your riding career, right?
Yeah, I suppose I was very lucky. At the time, I probably didn't realise, obviously when I was riding, I was going into different yards. Nicky Richards, Phil Kirby, loads of different yards in Midland. I've been down south, ridden some big yards. I've been to Gordon Elliott's, and been to worked at Lucinda Russell's. There's Mike Smith's, all sorts of different smaller, bigger yards. So along the way, I got to see different gallops, ride on different gallops, and see different. When I worked for Rose Dobbin up the road there when I was younger, like they've got a swimming pool, they've got indoor barn, they've got great facilities up there now, and Paul Robson trains up there. And Paul's been really helpful. We're trying to help each other out with different things.
And the experiences that you got from there through your riding career has led to success in training as well. And if it doesn't get you on the map nationally, it definitely does locally. That attracts new owners into the yards, which has seemingly there's been more of an influx since the last time we were here.
You need results. It's the same when I was riding as a jockey. I remember Richard Hale saying, I need winners to sell you, kind of thing. But I'm thinking, well, I need rides to get winners. But it's the same with the racing. You need runners to get the winners, but you need the horses. So you've just got to try and take a little bit of a gamble. We bought Wise Eagle very cheap. I'm sure he was only 7,000 guineas, and to go on doing what he did, was certainly a massive stepping stone, and he's brought in some really nice owners, you know, Paul Willis. He just said, I want to send you a horse, and then a couple of days later I said, actually I'm sending you two.
And things can come out of the blue as well. You were telling me about one of your newer owners who sold his business.
Yeah.
How exactly did the Humbles get involved with you?
Just, I'm sure Malcolm saw me have a winner at Sedgefield, Benefit Ben, and we came up, him and Carol came to the yard, had a good chat, they seemed to like it. Then a few months later, through the summer there, we were always looking for a horse, and we managed to come across, thanks to Marcus Colley, sourced him, and he went over to John Nallen's and he passed the vetting, and we took a gamble and bought him, and like I say, we ran him on the flat and muscle. I don't know how he got beat, it was just one of them things, only just beaten ahead, and probably, you know, he's only a juvenile, he's a baby, so he came on a lot for the run, and then we ran him in the Wensleydale, and I thought he was quite impressive in the Wensleydale.
It's Manella Study. Ames now asked to dig in and come after the leader. Manella Study leads by a length in the Wensleydale. Ames now trying to launch a challenge on the outside, but Manella Study sticks the neck out, makes it 2 for 2.
He's only had the one run over hurdles, and we were fairly trapped into the second last. There was no stride, and he just got it wrong. But like what I loved about that was he didn't fall in a hole. Like literally, as soon as he got his feet back underneath him, he was going again, which not many horses do. You know, usually a mistake like that, they go, oh, I'm done. But he had plenty left, and I just, yeah, it was a really impressive performance. To be fair, I mean, we beat the favourite fair and square. There was no excuses. So. No, hopefully he can pick up some other ones.
If he hadn't run over hurdles when he was with John Nallen, would he be running over hurdles in this season for you, or not necessarily?
Well, I mean, we bought him for it to be a dual purpose. So yes, obviously, I probably wouldn't have gone straight for the Wensleydale if he hadn't. I'd have just tried to pick up an ordinary juvenile, because he had won a Tipperary so well, and when we're riding him at home, he gives you a nice feel. We just thought, we had that race in mind for quite a while.
I remember when Adam said he was running them in the Wensleydale, I was like, oh, you sure? Sure you could find an easier race to start with. But he was so sure that it was the right race, and so fair play to him. That was the first thing I said when I came back out of the winners' enclosure. I says, well, fair play, because I wouldn't have done that. And like he did it really well. You know, there was no fluke about it. So yeah, he's a really exciting horse to look forward to moving forward.
What does winning a race like the Wensleydale do for a yard of your stature? It's a growing yard, bigger and better things are surely in the offing, but that's a first listed success for you, and it must just be a serious bit of validation for all of the hard, the winter days that you face, and the conditions, and the days when yourself and Jenny were having to plough through difficult conditions.
That's it. It makes it all worthwhile. You know, it's chucking down with rain there, and the guys are still riding out. So I was just saying to my mother there the other night, you know, I've been very lucky from day one when I got into racing. Really, I landed on my feet. Very, very lucky, being able to get a horse come across Lady Buttons. I thought I achieved everything I probably potentially could have as a jockey. You know, I was never at the heights of like McCoy, etc., anything like that, and never dreamed to think I was, but I was just very fortunate and very lucky. Then when I started training, we got Wise Eagle to go on and win from a mark of 67 on the flat to then climbing to 107 I felt a great achievement. Having that with him as well assured us that what we're doing obviously works. You know, you can train horses off the beach. You don't have to gallop them all the time. I'm hoping with some other horses in the yard, along with Manella Study, we're coming across some more nice horses. So I've been very lucky all the way through, coming across some good horses, really, which isn't easy.
So that's it for this series of This Racing Life. We've enjoyed and battled the conditions in equal measure, but the enthusiasm of all was palpable, and we wish all of them the best of luck for the coming months.
This Racing Life with Albasti Equiworld, the leading supplier of horse feeds and supplements.